in this way. You have very nicely this contradiction. Did you see he's a little bit too pretentious? I don't like it too much, but sometimes he's not totally stupid. Lars von Trier, Breaking the Waves.
Yeah.
You remember the pact that the guy and Emily Watson make. She should screw around to tell him. He exploits her. His pleasure is masturbatory. He needs her as an instrument to provide him fantasies so that he can masturbate. But for her, it's jouissance of the other. As he makes it very clear, while she actually seduces other men, it's disgusting for her. Her only pleasure is telling him about that. Yes?
What about the movie Sex, Lies, and Videotape?
I know, but I will not bluff here. I half forgot about that movie because I don't like Andy McDowell. Oh, sorry, I'm very vulgar.
The whole idea of watching.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's more. Who is the guy? James Spader, no? The way he does it, it's more okay. You can also read it as a kind of how the guy slowly breaks out of this masturbatory circle and so on, gets into love. Yeah, you can. But okay, let's nonetheless. Now we got totally lost. Let's go back to the main line. Yes. So my point. Where were we? Yes. The jump was from this fantasy and so on, and then to this point. 4 types of women's expression. Incidentally, this also raises an interesting question. Don't be afraid, nothing tasteless will follow now. About hardcore pornography. You know, what's your point of identification there? I absolutely don't think that you identify if you are a man, a heterosexual man. I'm now talking about the elementary situation. Heterosexual man watching a heterosexual straight movie. I don't think that the point of identification is that you identify with the guy who is... No, that guy is pure instrument, which is why they usually use some sailors with tattoos, etc., which incidentally for me is extremely destimulating and so on. Because I'm very conservative here. Basically, I'm against hardcore pornography and I'm against even prostitution. I mean, no. Women can do whatever they want. I just don't think... Okay, some friends try to convince me I buy this, that. Maybe, I don't know, there are women who relate to money they earn in prostitution in the same way that psychoanalysts, who are, we all know, prostitutes of the mind, no, relate to payment. As Lacan puts it very nicely, the function of money is to allow you to keep out of a certain libidinal circuit. Why do you have basically to pay the analyst? So that he will not get drawn and become just another of people in whose, that circle in whose traumas you are involved, and so on and so on. So, I was told, but it's up to women to say it, I don't know, that if you, and I think this is a totally respectable position, if you just want raw sex and hate any involvement, emotional, that maybe that's how money can work. It's a kind of a guarantee of not getting involved. And it works this way. Let me give you, don't be afraid, no obscenity, a pure clinical example. What was Freud's mistake in his most famous case, the treatment of Wolfman? You know Wolfman, the Russian nobleman? After October Revolution, he lost money, and Freud was too good. Freud helped him. Instead of Wolfman paying him, Freud gave him some money to survive. The result was clinically catastrophic. A big regression into paranoia, in the sense of, because if you are in this borderline, he's basically some kind of borderline case. You cannot say that he's really bad. But it triggered in the 20s regression to paranoia. Because Freud was all of a sudden, by paying him money, Freud lost this analytically neutral position. So, this triggered immediately in Wolfman paranoia activity in the sense of, why is Freud giving me money? This famous Lacanian cave void, what does he want? is that kind of plot to control me? Does Freud want me to marry his daughter or whatever? This is why you have a serious relapse, and then it's only later he got Wolfman in the late mid-20s, another analyst, an American one. She was made famous by that movie with Jane Fonda, Pentimento. With Jane Fonda plays there the Dashiell Hammett's wife, the writer. What was her name again? Lillian Hellman. But the Vanessa Redgrave character, that leftist communist who was also a psychoanalyst in Vienna, you know who is the model of that? Muriel Gardiner, a pupil of Freud who was in Vienna in the 20s. That's the real life model of, and she then set things straight, she then cured Wolfman, and then it was surprising, he survived till early 50s in Vienna and so on. But so, what I wanted to say is that maybe it works like this, but nonetheless, how should I put it, don't you think, there is so much, and maybe there are some cases, so friends tell me, where you have how do you call the guy, Macron, the guy who controls a prostitute, who? Pimp, yeah. Maybe there are some ideal relationships of a nice pimp who really protects you, but, as they say, I would like to see it, and I would like to really hear the entire story, how should I put it, what I find much more interesting as a problem is male prostitution. Because you know why? Because men had to prove it with erection and so on. No? So how can you link money being... Okay, but we are getting lost in it. Let's go back to Hegel and all this stuff. So the point of... That's where we started this digression. The point of Robert Fowler is how sex, all this, as it were, wild outbursts, that they are strictly, as Lacan would have put it, an affair of the big other. They are not, as it were, spontaneous explosions of our innermost blah, blah, blah. We have to learn them. These intimate transgressions are even more codified, and I noticed this with some of my friends, that it's a little bit like, you remember the tasteless story I was telling you, that Albanian soldier, when we went into mother, sister, mother, it was totally ritualized, a little bit of obscenity, it was kind of obscene duty. We have to go through this, and maybe I am a madman here, I accept it. But I noticed that these are my relationship with some of my friends. When we meet, for example, my good friend, the Jewish anti-Zionist cinema maker, Udi Aloni. When we met, we first go to obligatory 10 minutes, extremely vulgar, humiliating each other, you dirty Jew, how are you doing? That's to give you an idea of these really nasty obscenities. He always mocks me and tells me, this disgusting myth about Jews of that they eat Christian babies, children. He told me, come to me to dinner. I told him, no, I don't dine with Jews, never be with private. Then he tells me, but I will serve you a good Christian baby. Then I tell him, no, the last time you cheated, you bought a discount, refrozen Christian baby. Then he said, I promise you, and we go through this, and the perversity is that we both experience it as a kind of a ritualistic duty. Then after 5 minutes we say, okay, we did our duty, now we can talk normally. This is what Lacan means, the role of the big other and so on, the unconscious is outside. If there is a thing Lacan is radically opposed to, it is precisely this idea that your desires or whatever are, how to put it, deep within you. Okay, let's now nonetheless go back to the main line, negativity and all that. Where were we? With this self-negation, yes, how the signifier falls into the signified. It is, the way I explained it, in the sense that, okay, let me take a simple example. Anti-Semitism.